The final 53-man roster is set. There are definitely a bunch of surprises, guys, that we didn't even anticipate making the roster. We have injury news, we have future moves that haven't even occurred yet. There are multiple things to look at when examining the 49ers final 53-man roster. So, what we are going to do is we are going to hop in, we are going to break it all down. We are going to start looking at what we agree with, what we don't agree with, the biggest surprises, and again, like I mentioned, some moves that still need to occur. So we've made it. That means that today symbolizes that we are one step closer away from the regular season, and we are almost there. Obviously, still a lot to take care of, but we have some clarity in regards to who has made the final roster. So, do me a favor, drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button, and let's react to the 49ers final 53-man roster right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. All right, we have our final roster all set, at least for the most part. Still some things to figure out, but I do think it is a phenomenal time to react to what the San Francisco 49ers have done. And let's break it all down because there were some surprises that popped up from this final roster. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. Let's start with some of the moves that had went down as the initial moves were announced. Let's start with some good news, shall we? This move made me very happy to see that the San Francisco 49ers were activating safety Talanoa Hufanga off the PUP, which means he is one step closer to returning to game time action. Now, obviously, the goal for Talanoa Hufanga is to be available and ready to go for week one against the Jets. So I still think there's a hurdle that needs to be cleared on Wednesday for him to get full clearance to be able to return. But this is a great step in the right direction because a lot were wondering or speculating about could he start on IR? What do you think the situation was going to be? And it does appear he has taken one crucial step closer to being able to go. So absolutely love it. Hubanga is back in action, at least very, very close. Let's talk about, I would say this is one of the most surprising move so far. I just wasn't anticipating it. I wasn't anticipating that the San Francisco 49ers were going to place running back Elijah Mitchell on season ending injured reserve. Now, if you would have told me he's going to end up on IR with the designation to return, that wouldn't have surprised me in the slightest. But the fact that the 2024 season for Elijah Mitchell is done, finito, over with, I wasn't necessarily expecting that. So that's crazy because, from my understanding, Elijah Mitchell is in a contract year. So he will be, again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty positive, about 95% sure, that Elijah Mitchell will be a free agent at the end of the year, which means we could have seen the last of Elijah Mitchell. So, wow. I wasn't expecting that. Again, I was not expecting that. I think we were expecting a situation where all that stuff with him starting slow could have happened. This is a great question. Brandon asked Brad, who was the biggest snub and the biggest surprise? Let's. I'm gonna star that one, and we will save that question for when we get through kind of the initial roster and reactions. Um, this was some housekeeping stuff. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw was placed on the PUP. No real surprise there. And defensive tackle Kalia Davis was placed on IR, but he was designated to return. So let's talk about the guys who made it. Let's talk about the 49ers players who made the final roster. Again, there were some surprises. There were definitely some surprises, and let's talk about those coming up right now. I already see the chat popping off with some of the things that you guys have in mind and are thinking of. So we'll definitely cross that bridge, but let's keep it rolling and let's talk about the guys who have made it. So let's start with the offense. The 49ers keep three quarterbacks. I don't think there's really a initial surprise here. Joshua Dobbs played really well. I don't think the 49ers wanted to cut either Dobbs or Brandon Allen, so they bring all three back. That to me was the logical move. That made the most sense. So no real surprise there. I think that was a smart move. Now, this is where I think we start to see some of our first, like, oh, wow, that guy made the roster. Obviously, with Elijah Mitchell going to injured reserve, that opens up a spot, that opens up a slot. And now, obviously, Christian McCaffrey is going to make it. Jordan Mason's going to make it. Isaac Garendo is going to make it along with Kyle Juszczyk. It was Patrick Taylor Jr. who slides through and makes the final roster. Listen, that was definitely a surprise for sure. Um, it was I'm definitely surprised to sit here today and say Patrick Taylor is on your final 53-man roster, but I don't mind it. I don't not like it. I think with Cody Schrader, there's a lot of promise and a lot of hope for what Cody Schrader can be. So I don't think anyone's out on Cody Schrader. I think we've identified Schrader as kind of a perfect practice squad candidate. Put him on the P squad, let him marinate for a year or two, and then we will see what we got in Cody Schrader. Who knows? He could even play at some point this season while being on the practice squad. I hope Schrader is able to come back around. Now, Patrick Taylor makes it. He makes the final spot. And honestly, I was surprised just because of lack of participation through training camp and the preseason. I'm not surprised that the 49ers liked his attributes because I've talked about Patrick Taylor when he was signed. I was probably one of the rare people who knew who Patrick Taylor was when the San Francisco 49ers signed him. I talked about why I knew who he was because I'm a big dynasty player and I had Aaron Jones, the former Green Bay running back, who was always hurt. So I had to figure out who the backups were, and Patrick Taylor was one of them. And Patrick Taylor was a guy who stood out to me when he was with the Green Bay Packers. He comes to us. That was my logic with it. I was like, oh, I liked what I saw from him. He just didn't play all that much. And then in 49ers training camp, it was the same thing. I liked what I saw from him, but we didn't see all that much of him. So I didn't really know how to quantify him because I wanted to see him like in preseason, but we really didn't see him all that much. I don't know. Did we even see him in preseason? I can look that up right now. So he got 18 He got 18 attempts for 71 yards. He ran at 3.9 a carry through 3 preseason games against. Oh, that's too. Excuse me. Reset. Wrong year. So in 2024 preseason, he had 4 attempts for 15 yards and a touchdown. There we go. I was like, wow. I was like, that. I was like, he played more than I thought. No, I was looking at the wrong year. Sorry about that. So Patrick Taylor took 4 snaps for 15 yards, 3.8 a carry, and a touchdown in 2024. And that all came against the Las Vegas Raiders. So the 49ers must have felt comfortable with his contributions to special teams. And again, he's a bigger bodied back who could definitely run in between the tackles. So wasn't anticipating he would make it, but he did. Let's talk about the wide receivers. Oh boy. Oh boy. If you guys were a part of my lives, you would have heard me talk about this position quite a bit. And I made my stance on this position really clear. I said I think there are 6 locks, and I think there's one particular guy who's scrapping and clawing to make and convince the San Francisco 49ers to keep 7. I said it was Ronnie Bell. A lot of people didn't like what they've seen from Ronnie Bell in the preseason. I get it. I understand. He didn't have that great of a preseason. However, I was at training camp and I thought Ronnie Bell had a good training camp. Hendrick says surprised Bell made it, but you called it. That's what I was saying. I was like, I would say if anyone's going to challenge for a 7th, it's Ronnie Bell because he had a strong camp. He just had a poor preseason. And in regards to receiving, he did it as a blocker. He did it as a returner. He just didn't do what we wanted to see as a receiver. So the 49ers opt to keep 7. Honestly, I thought they were going to keep 6. But as I discussed, the 7th would have been Ronnie Bell, and it sure enough was. So Ronnie Bell makes the final roster amidst a lot of, he definitely didn't earn too many fans this year, but that could change. I still got faith in Ronnie Bell. I don't know if he'll ever be that crazy playmaker that we all anticipated, but I like it. Before we get to the tight ends, let's talk about who else made it. Obviously, the rookies made it, and Chris Conley. So shout out to Chris Conley for making the roster. He had one of the best camps out of the receivers. He's just solid. He's just a solid veteran guy who can contribute on special teams. He's going to make plays when the opportunity comes. He's going to be in the right spot. So you love to have those kinds of players on this team. Really happy to see Chris Conley make the final roster. He deserved it. So love that for him. This was probably one of the biggest surprises. If we're going to talk about biggest surprises, I would say the biggest surprise is the tight end room. Even though we're going to get to some other surprises, but when you look at the 49ers and historically under Kyle Shanahan, who keeps like at minimum 3 tight ends, not only did he not keep 3, but he kept a tight end and none of the other ones that I was anticipating. I absolutely thought Eric Saubert was a lock to make it. I thought he had proven himself as a receiver. I thought he'd proven himself as a blocker. I really did think that Saubert had done enough to earn a final roster spot. And the fact that he not even on here, he gets cut. And then you have some more surprise. I thought so. My 3 tight ends were Kittle, Sauber, Willis. I was like, oh yeah, I'm confident. I was- I'm confident. I'm confident in this. And then nope, Sauber, Willis, Latu all get the axe. And it is Jake Tonges who makes it. Shout out to Jake Tonges, um, for sure. Uh, I do think that he has definitely he caught my eye this not only through the preseason but training camp. I thought he was just super consistent when he was given the opportunity. And obviously, being consistent is a huge aspect of being able to contribute in the NFL. So that must have been enough for them. And again, part of the logic too, with not thinking Tonjes was going to make it, was he seemed like the perfect type of guy to slide through waivers and make it back to the practice squad. So crazy development with the tight end spot. I'm going to assume the 49ers are going to try to get Braden Willis back on the practice squad along with, I would assume we'll talk about what's going to happen with some additional roster moves on the next page with the offensive line. But I think Eric Sauber could be a guy that comes back. So obviously, you see Jonathan Feliciano at the top of the list. He made the roster. Um, I assume that they are going to pass him through on the roster and then place him on injured reserve so that he could return later on in the year. But the 49ers keep Nick Sakel, Jake Brendel, Aaron Banks, Colton McKivitz, Spencer Burford, Jalen Moore, and Dominic Pooney. So I'm actually surprised that the 49ers went away from what they did last year. Because if you guys remember, they kept two swing tackles. They kept Jalen Moore for the left side swing tackle, and they kept, I think, I forget his name, Matt Pryor, I think it was. Matt Pryor for the right swing tackle. Um, and it just felt like they didn't need to do that, but I think they were basically saying they didn't feel comfortable with Jalen Moore playing on the right, which is why they needed to do that. So I don't know if this is an indication that they now feel more comfortable with Jalen Moore on the right. Does Spencer Burford potentially fill in as a right swing tackle? That's going to be a very, very interesting development in that regard. And obviously, what you see here on this list is there's no Trent Williams. So Trent Williams is not listed, obviously, because he is on the did not report um, list here. So he doesn't count against the 49ers final roster. So obviously we're crossing our fingers and we are hoping and praying that the 49ers and Trent Williams get something done. He will then have to come back on to the 49ers roster, and they will have to find room elsewhere. So that's another development that we're still waiting and seeing what is ultimately going to happen with Trent Williams. So we shall see what the future holds for Trent, because some of the updates that we've been getting this week aren't the best. So it is what it is. Let's do this. Who are your guys' biggest snubs for the offense? Who got snubbed from the offense that you weren't expecting? These are the list of the players who got waived. Uh, Alisorn, Evan Anderson, Alex Barrett, Shaquille Brown, Jonathan Garvin, Jalen Graham, Danny Gray, Gutierrez, Kingston, Latu, Lucas, Mahone, Tay Martin, Tanner Mordecai, Nugent, Pline, Schrader, Willis, Womack. And then these guys were released: Barch, Chosen, Hubbard, McGill, Parker, Salbert, Trent Taylor, Logan Thomas, Tracy Walker, Nick Williams, Rock Yasin. Who was the biggest snubbery? Kingston. Kingston's the biggest snubbery. Salbert, Kingston, Salbert, Jalen Graham, Rock Yasin, Latu, Graham, Womack, Barrett, Salbert, Yasin, Kingston, Yasin. Yeah, I thought Yasin was gonna make it too. They kept. We'll talk about it. We'll talk. We'll talk about it. He said Trent Williams. Kingston over Burford. I mean, that's not a surprise. Burford was making this roster. There's no way Burford wasn't going to make the roster. But I do see a lot of people surprised by. It looks like Kingston and Sauber on the offense were the biggest snubs from the list. Should have kept Mordecai. I would imagine Mordecai will be a practice squad guy. Kingston, Zakel honestly got a lot better this year. Yasin, Jarrett Kingston, Tanner Mordecai. So if I had to pick, what are we talking? We're talking biggest snub. The biggest snub, I might have to say, based on training camp, based on preseason, I might have to say the biggest snub might be Eric Salbert. I felt real confident. I felt real confident that Eric Salbert was going to make it. I'm surprised by that. I really am. I thought I think that's the biggest snub and surprise mixed into one. I thought the biggest surprise was probably Elijah Mitchell heading to injured reserve, because I definitely was not anticipating that Elijah Mitchell would be done for the season. I did not have that on my bingo card. So yeah, that was definitely something that I was not anticipating at all. All right, let's switch gears to the defensive side of the football. We haven't talked about the defense yet. So let's talk about this defense. All right, so I'm not going to lie. Oh, that's cool. When the 49ers put out this graphic and I didn't see Deommodore Lenoir, like, obviously I didn't think he got cut, but I was like, wow, we didn't put Lenoir? We didn't put Lenoir on this? That's a surprise, but we'll get to that in a second. That was my first initial reaction to this particular graphic. But Charvarius Ward, Ambry Tomic, Isaac Yadam, Daryl Luter, Renardo Green. I would say that Ambry was a surprise. I'm surprised that he made it. Considering honestly, just he just hasn't played well. It and that's I'm not trying to be overly critical of Ambry Thomas. Um, he hasn't played well and he's hurt. So I thought we had seen the last of Ambry Thomas. But I wonder if part of the process is thinking that Ambry would get picked up by someone like Adam Peters, and they don't want to see that happen. They don't want to see Ambry Thomas go away and then find success elsewhere. Even though if that were to happen, I think that would be fine. I, I really think that Ambry needs a fresh start, because he's just struggled, at least here. Um, I got nothing against him personally. I just feel like over what we've seen over the last couple training camps, and again, he didn't have a good training camp this year, I thought. But with Ward, Yadam, Luter, and Renardo, no surprises there. I would say that Ambry is the surprise, but I would expect that he also um, goes to IR when they get through. So we talked about this linebacker room quite a bit. I thought they were going to keep 5. They kept 6, and a lot of the great debate that we had was between Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles and Curtis Robinson. I thought Curtis Robinson was worthy, but I thought they were only going to keep 5, and so I thought they were going to keep DFF and Jalen Graham, but instead they kept Tatum Bethune, which is a really strong indication for Tatum that he beat out Jalen Graham. I mean, I get it. Both of them were 7th round draft picks in consecutive years and both kind of similar players. But I just assumed they would have went with the guy who's a little bit older in Jalen Graham, and they ended up going Tatum Bethune. So that was, I would say, the surprise there. But the fact that they kept Curtis Robinson, not a surprise to me. The fact that they kept Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, not a surprise to me either. So they keep 6 linebackers. I thought they were going to keep 5. And then this is the defensive line unit. And I do think we have a bit of a surprise here as well. And it played into some of our conversations that we had about this roster prior to the final roster being cut. Obviously, Robert Beal, Floyd, Givens, Elliott, Matos, Bosa, Hargrave, Collins. Not one surprise there. We were talking about who was going to get that last spot. We were like, is it going to be an interior defensive tackle? Is it going to be a defensive end? Where are they going? They went defensive end with Sam Okiwanu. And good for Sam, dude. Like, I honestly wasn't anticipating that. He seemed like I thought he was gonna like come back around to the practice squad kind of guy. I thought he showed nicely. I just didn't think that he would have potentially beat out some of these other guys like McGill and Barrett and Anderson. But the 49ers they liked what they saw from him, and the third-year player makes the roster. So good for him. I love those kinds of stories. Obviously, feel bad for my guy, Alex Barrett, but I would imagine Barrett's going to kick back around to the practice squad. So no real shocker, I guess, there. I had Barrett making it because I think they needed a defensive end, and the 49ers agreed. They just went with a different player than I was anticipating. So, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind it. I do think the 49ers will be interested in potentially searching for some additional defensive line depth, but in regards to the final, There you go. And then remember, we couldn't figure out where Diamador Lenore was. Um, you know what I'm saying? We're like, where's Diamador? They have he's got his own position. Diamador is so good right now. They said, you know what? We're not even going to call you a cornerback. We're not going to call you anything. We're just going to call you DB. We're just going to call you defensive back, which is fascinating for an outward facing graphic. I'm curious. Why would you designate Diamador Lenore as a DB? I get it. He plays nickel, he plays outside corner, but they're still both corners. They're still both cornerbacks. So why wouldn't he just slot into the cornerback? The cornerback situation. He's a DB now. He's positionless. He can play everything. He can play safety. He can play nickel. He can play outside corner. He could play kicker. He could play long snapper. He can do whatever. Doesn't matter. He's him. They shouldn't have put DBs. They should have put him in all capitals, all caps, just him. He's him, and just have his own category, him, because he's that guy, pal. I mean, Diamador Lenore, talk about a phenomenal offseason for him. Um, fantastic. So he gets his own spot apparently. Shout out to Demo. Demo clapping back too online earlier today. That was hilarious. And then also, of course, safeties. We talked about Talanoa Hufanga. Super excited to get Talanoa Hufanga back into the mix. Makes me really, really happy to see that. Was starting to get a little bit worried, starting to get a little bit concerned about what the future could hold for Talanoa Hufanga, just for the simple fact that, we didn't know if he was going to be ready for week 1. We felt that it was trending towards him being available for week 1, but without him being cleared yet, and again, not practicing last week, it was kind of like, oh boy, are we concerned about the potential of Talanoa Hufanga not being available? So the fact that he came off PUP today, and the fact that he is now listed with the starting safeties, won't start the year on IR or PUP, is a phenomenal win for the San Francisco 49ers. So very excited about that. Honestly, love our safety room. Jair Brown, George Odom, Malik Mustafa, Diamador Lenore. Our secondary in general is probably the best secondary we've had in a long time, with Charvarius Ward, Isaac Yadam, Daryl Luter, and Renardo Green. Obviously, TBD with what Ambry Thomas is going to be able to bring to the table this season regarding his injury and what his injury designation will be. But this defensive back room, compiled of the safeties and cornerbacks, what a great spot to be in. What a great room. And we haven't been able to say that all that often under, the 49ers era and regime. So this is just fantastic news. 100%. A very long ways away from the Josh Norman era, a fun era, an era that I like to forget sometimes, but still fun nonetheless. Oh boy, what's crazy about this though, when we look at the entire roster, is we're here. We've made it. We've made it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's still plenty of things to figure out regarding this offseason, but we have made it to that point that we have the final roster figured out. We got the final roster figured out. I'm for it. I'm loving it. I like it. That means we are very, very close to week 1 kickoff against the Jets. Let's grade this roster. If you were to give your initial grade of the final 53-man roster as you thought it should be assembled, let me know in the comments what you think you would grade this initial 53-man roster for the San Francisco 40. Just curious to see how the chat perceives what the 49ers have cooked up here with the final roster. Drop your letter grades in the chat. Starting off with a B plus. Jason gives a B plus as well. Hendricks says C without knowing the BA and Trent situation. B plus if both are active week 1. I think that is an extremely fair comment. A minus, B plus, B. A could have been an A plus if they claim Siaki Ika. I saw that guy get released. B plus, B only because of contract situations, otherwise an A. B minus only because no BA and Trent. A excited to see more 3 wide receiver sets. Possibly. I do think we will see more offensive line play, or excuse me, more 3 wide receiver sets for sure, especially when we only have 2 tight ends on the roster. When you only have 2 tight ends on the roster, you can't run that many 2 tight end sets. You can, but those guys are going to get tired pretty quickly. B minus, B, B plus, no Trent or BAC. B. Facts, if BA and Trent weren't holding out, it'd be an easy A. We got B. I think the logic is sound. I think this it's a bit of an incomplete grade, right? Because without Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk on the roster, I mean, that's 2 out of 11 pieces of your starting offense. So, yeah, as a result of that, that is definitely going to hinder the final grade for I would say this roster because it's incomplete. So if I had to grade it right now based on the players who aren't here also being accounted for, I would probably give it a B, a solid B, maybe a solid just 85, right down the middle. Solid B. Obviously, you bring back Trent, you bring back Ayuk, you're talking an A roster because those are 2 high end players, one of them being the best left tackle in the game, and one of them being top 5, top 10 wide receiver, depending on who you ask. So both players have been missed. You have felt their presence not being there at training camp. So hopefully the San Francisco 49ers can get that squared away. Also, too, I don't know if you guys saw this announcement earlier, but I'm really excited about what we're going to have cooking on the channel tomorrow. You may or may not have seen it, but if you haven't, I'm very excited to have Patrick Willis on the channel tomorrow. So I would say around 11:20, 11:30, we will have um we will have the man, the myth, the legend himself, P. Willie, in the building. We're going to be able to talk to him about his recent enshrinement to Canton, that whole experience. I'm super excited. This will be my third time chopping it up with Patrick Willis. This will actually be his second time on the channel. Believe it or not, we can start to say Patrick Willis is becoming a regular member of the SDS. You love to see it. So we'll have Patrick Willis on the channel tomorrow, and I'm really excited. Just talk some ball with Patrick Willis. Talk about obviously the emotional uh, induction ceremony and everything that he went through. Yeah, make him a co-host. Yeah, we'll do weekly shows with Patrick Willis. How dope would that be? No, but I'm excited to have Patrick Willis on the channel tomorrow. That's going to be a fun one. Obviously, always good chopping it up with 49ers legend Patrick Willis. So yeah, I'm excited about that one. So that will be a good conversation. We'll chop it up with him tomorrow. Like I said, keep an eye out for around 11:30. Around that time, I'll probably set I'll set the live tonight so you guys can turn post notifications on, and we will get this all squared away and have some good conversations with Hall of Famer Patrick Willis tomorrow. So excited about that. Justin says, if Ayuk misses week one, does Cowing have a shot to play meaningful snaps? I definitely would say he has a shot. Does that mean that happens? I'm not really sure. I would assume Connolly fills that kind of immediate role left by Brandon Ayuk, but I think Jacob Cowing again has proven exactly what we saw in the pre-draft process was that Jacob Cowing just is a playmaker. He is just a guy who is going to go out and get it done and make plays. And whether you've seen that in practice, whether you've seen it in preseason games, I have no doubt that that will transfer to the field on Sundays. So with Jacob Cowing, yeah, could he play meaningful snaps? Of course. I can't anticipate that he'll play a ton of meaningful snaps just because I still think I think he's behind Samuel, Jennings, and Conley. But if there's no Ayuk, yeah, he could be that speed threat. He could be that guy who fills that role where you need a burner, you need a guy to stretch the field, and that could absolutely be Jacob Cowing. So it could happen. I'm just hesitant. I'm honestly just hesitant to crown any type of rookie wide receiver in a week one situation where we just haven't seen it in regular season action because I you never know with Kyle. You never know what Kyle's thinking. You never know what Kyle's cooking up and how he's going to have the hierarchy of the wide receiver room. Well, you just don't know. So the assumption is yes, he could play meaningful snaps, but I'm not going to guarantee it just because we just don't know. We don't know with him and what he's going to do. So, yeah, I'm not going to. I'm not going to put any money on it, but he could. I mean, you could play like again if we do sleeper picks, and we say there's a good line on Cowing, and it's like over 1.5 catches with no Ayuk. We could play with that. Like we could play with that a little bit. I just don't know. I can't. Kyle Shanahan's a hard one to crack. He's a hard one to really kind of like figure out like what's the plan here? What is our plan for this rotation? Uh um if you guys have any I'll open it up for questions. Um I'll open it up for questions that you guys have. Oh, is Sleeper back? Oh, I might have made a little bit of a premature announcement, but I would just say stick around. Stick around. And I think we'll definitely find out very shortly. There's a couple things I got cooking up behind the scenes, but yeah, Sleeper very well could be back. Very, very well could be back. So, um, let's see. What other questions do we got in the chat? Uh, oh gosh. Who do I think signs first? That is a great question. This is actually the $100 million question. Who do we think? Do we think first of all they're going to sign? Do we think that that's going to occur? I don't know. I got a little nervous. The Josina Anderson update today didn't make me feel any better about the situation. It made me feel like maybe this negotiation with Trent Williams and the 49ers is closer to Brandon Ayuk. Uh, like the situation that's going on with Brandon Ayuk, it's just not as public. Um, so, with that in mind, it doesn't make me feel all that much more confident that I just don't feel confident about this situation in the slightest. I think any confidence that I may or may not have had has just absolutely gone out the window. Um, so yeah, I have no idea. I I have no idea what's going to come of that situation. Do I know? I have no idea who's gonna. I can't even give you an answer of who I think is going to sign first. Who do we drop if we sign Trent? Please, Ambry. I'm assuming Ambry is going to head over to injured reserve. So I think he'll be on a list where he won't count against the 49ers active roster. So if they had to cut somebody from the current list that they have, it could, oh boy. They're pretty thin at offensive line, so I don't think it'd be another offensive lineman. They could go back to 6 wide receivers. That could be an option. If Ambry reverts to IR, they could get one of the linebackers since they have 6. That really feels like the only spots that they could make room is at the linebacker spots and at the wide receiver spots. So, but they should be able to make 2 open roster spots with Ambry and Feliciano heading to IR. So you should be able to get some guys back, like Salbert. Hopefully he comes back. I was bummed to see him go, and then someone else could maybe come on back as well, or they could opt to claim someone off waivers, sign someone who got released. they could also go that route. So it'll be fascinating to see if they add anyone. Were there any names that you guys saw on the open market that got either waived or released that you would be interested in? One guy that I would be really interested in, even though he's not necessarily needed, but I would be very interested in, is Donovan Peoples Jones. I think that guy has the potential to be a solid number two wide receiver. He had a good season with the Browns. Then he got traded midseason. Never really grabbed footing with the Detroit Lions. They let him go. I like Donovan Peoples Jones, man. Like he's got some talent. Now there might be something else going on there, but if you could get Peoples Jones onto the practice squad just to kick the tires on that and see if he's worth sticking around, like I would like to see that. I think he's still pretty young. I think he's probably like 25, uh, something like that. So that would be fascinating. I just saw this. Tim Patrick is going to be signing with the Detroit Lions practice squad. So we've already got announcements of some of the veteran players being able to sign elsewhere. Frank Gore Jr. Hey, he had a good preseason. I mean, I think the 49ers should do it. If they could, they should. He had a good preseason. He runs just like Pops. You see he's got vision. He's got a suddenness to him. He doesn't got long speed or anything like that, but uh he can definitely run between the tackles. He's someone that I mean, it's such a great story. Oh, that's a good question. I would assume he did. I would assume he did. Let me check. Because when just like when Frank Gore got released, I would assume that we would have heard about it. Oh yeah, he did. Look at that. He did it. Brandon Rice made wait, I'm seeing conflicting reports. Brandon Rice. I'm seeing conflicted. Yeah, they're saying he did. They're saying he did. Yep, he made the initial roster, and not only that, he apparently had a really strong camp. So Brendan Rice gets it done, and he made the Chargers roster. Good for Brendan. Good for him. That's dope. Can we look at Tony? No, Tony's not a fit. He doesn't belong here. He doesn't belong here. He's not a 49er. He's not built the right way. Alex, man, hopefully you're doing well, dude. I saw your post. Hopefully you're doing well, man. Hopefully everything's going all right. Um, no, I'm not. I'm not doing it. If If Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid specializes in like retreads. He specializes in character concern players. If Andy Reid can't get the most out of Kadarius Toney, I don't want Kadarius Toney 1,000 yards near this team. Um, no, no, thank you, no, thank you. He was a guy that was probably slated to be my favorite wide receiver prospect heading into his class until I listened to one interview with him and I took him off my board. His interview and his character was so bad on one interview that I went, nope. And I said, you are not worthy. That doesn't mean he's not talented. That's the problem with Kadarius Toney. He's probably one of the most talented wide receivers in the league if we're talking pure talent. But he's got to be one of the biggest doofuses in the entire league. I don't know what's going on between the ears, but it's just not there. And that's a huge. That's you can't have a quality football player without a guy who understands it mentally, who understands it um, emotionally, is emotionally intelligent enough to get out of his own way. He's just not good, and he's not a good presence. Yes, is he an athlete? Is he a guy that in Madden, in that sense, where you like, oh yeah, we could use the talent? Of course, he's one of the most talented wide receivers. He is a terrible teammate and just terrible locker room presence. It wouldn't be worth it. And the 49ers players talk about how they're very, very particular about certain personalities entering their locker room and how John and Kyle are very quick to get rid of guys like Kadarius Toney. So I don't think he would last. It would be nah. And again, I love the talent. Love the talent. Can't stand the player. Doofus Hall of Fame, Kadarius Toney, 100%. He is in the Doofus Hall of Fame. He's in the CTE Hall of Fame. I'm not saying that he has CTE. Just reminds me of Antonio Brown later on in his career. What is Antonio's thing? CTESPN. He is the CTESPN Player of the Year. That's what Kadarius Toney is. The CTESPN Player of the Year. I don't want that guy. I don't want that guy at all. Get him away from me. Get him away from me. Oh, we didn't talk about this. So how do we feel? Let's talk about the 49ers effectively really just kind of moving off the 2012 draft class. I think this has been one of the biggest takeaways from today is obviously this draft class looks really good because the 49ers happen to luck out on the very final pick. But when we go down the list, Drake Jackson most likely slated for IR. I believe he's already been on IR or PUP, one of the two. I don't. I believe we already know Drake Jackson is done for the season. He will not return. Ty Davis Price was cut two seasons ago. I think he got cut in 2023. Ty Davis Price did. We cut Danny Gray today. Spencer Burford got beat out by Dominic Pooney. Samuel Womack got cut today. Nick Sakel made the roster. I would say that Nick Sakel, although still some time to go, he has a ways, but I'd say he's much improved. You can make the case that Nick Sakel was arguably the most improved player, just based on what we saw last year to what we saw this year. So Zakel looked like he took big steps forward. Kalia Davis, I would say, would also be in that category for most improved, but unfortunately, he got hurt. So he's going to start the year on IR with the potential to return. Tariq Castro Fields didn't even make it past the first roster cut. He was cut when they cut the final 53, and he got claimed by the Commanders. And then, of course, you've got Brock. Brock is right now the shining star of this 2022 draft class, where otherwise it's crazy to think that the Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick, we're going to eventually be talking about how this pick is the most important, not draft pick, most important player acquisition that the 49ers potentially ever made under the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era. And it happened to come in a draft year where the entire class turned out to not be good. And he was the very last pick in the draft. Like when we talk about the overall quarterbacks that were selected in 2022, not good. I think Kenny Pickett was the first quarterback off the list. You had guys like Sam Howell, Bailey Zappi. Those are like the quarterbacks. I can't even think of the other ones. And it's just crazy that after all of that, Brock Purdy could be the most important player the 49ers have added in the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch regime, and it happened to be a shot in the dark at taking a swing at a quarterback at Iowa State in the 4th round. Pretty wild scenario how it all played out. I'll never forget TDP could have been Leo Chanel. I'll never forget when my guy Rashad White went like 2 picks ahead of the 49ers before they took Ty Davis Price. I know Justin remembers. I was emphatic. I loved Rashad White. Absolutely loved him. And I was like, oh, we got to do whatever we can to get this guy. Got to do whatever we can to get this guy. And he goes like 2 picks before the 49ers draft Ty Davis Price. And it's crazy because Rashad White is a 3-down workhorse starter for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And Ty Davis Price, I think, just got released today by the Philadelphia Eagles. So 2 players, same position, 2 picks apart from each other. One is a bona fide workhorse running back. The other is a guy who can't stay on a team. So, man, that one hurt. But I can't even blame the 49ers because they would have had to trade up. But oh, that's good. I would take Nugent over Zakel. I just think there's a trust factor that goes into O-line, and I think although Nugent showed a lot of promise and he played well, I think there's just a trust factor. I think there's a trust factor involved with that situation as well. Chanel went 3 picks later. Yeah, I mean, I was a huge Zach Tom guy. I like Zach Tom. That's the guy that I kind of honed in on late. um, into the process, and I was like, okay, this is the mid round guy that I want. 6'5", 300 pounds, can play tackle, guard, center. Fits the scheme, fits exactly what we want to do. Um, that's a guy that would fit phenomenally with us. So I was a big Zach Tom guy, and then we went Spencer Burford. I actually, I I didn't love the Spencer Burford pick when it first went down, and I've talked about this many times, just because I didn't see the fit. I didn't see the fit because I felt he wasn't kind of technically advanced. Now, physically, and we talked about this before, like physically, he's low key a prototype, like the way he moves, his size, his strength. Physically, Burford is kind of what you're looking for, but the technical side of it scared me when I was watching him. And coincidentally enough, those are the same things that still haunt him today. That's probably one of the reasons why he got beat out by Dominic Pooney, because Pooney has proven he's already technically advanced as a rookie. And that is just one of the things that's why I always harp on technical advancement for college players, because technique is super hard to master, and if you haven't mastered it by the college level, it's also going to be really hard to master it at the NFL level. So for me, I'm trying to look for offensive linemen who already come technically savvy. They already have the quality pass sets. They take the correct angles. They get their head across. They do the small things consistently well, and that was one of the things that stood out with me with Burford's tape when he was at UTSA. Is he the size was there, the measurables, the physical traits, those were all there. I just had a hard time with the technical aspects of it, and sure enough, that's been his biggest issue. It's not the size, it's not the movement, it's not the power. He has all of those things. It's just the small, fine fine-tuned details of playing the offensive line, and that's why, like, it's exciting to have Pooney, because he's already proven for the most part that he can do that. Like, he can handle the all the small details of playing offensive line, like that already uh, has been there. Zach Tom has been great too. Yeah, he's been phenomenal. He's been he's been phenomenal. Jordan Love called him a dominant tackle in this league. He's been fantastic. He's been a steal of a pick for the Green Bay Packers. I won't be surprised if they're talking about him as a Pro Bowler or All Pro when it's all said and done. But hey, I get it. It's like I'm not perfect in that same draft too. I really liked what's his name? Donovan West. And I remember I told you guys about that the reason why I was a big Rashad White fan was because of Donovan West. I was scouting Donovan West. I came across Rashad White, and now, although Donovan West had good tape, I remember I told you guys when I went to the combine and I got eyes on Donovan West, he was smaller than everyone. I couldn't believe how small he was, because he was listed like 6'4", 300. And then you looking at him and he's like a size smaller than every other offensive lineman. I was like, oh. And I think that was his issue. He's just too small. We ended up adding Donovan West as a undrafted free agent, but I just think he didn't have the size for the NFL. Um, is it weird that they currently don't have a swing tackle on the roster, or are we hoping for Trent Williams news soon? Well, again, they kept Jalen Moore, and Jalen Moore is a left tackle predominantly. They don't trust Jalen Moore at right tackle. I think they told us that last year when they opted to keep two swing tackles, something that you typically don't see all that often. Um, so so yes, okay, they kept the one swing tackle and Jalen Moore. Um, and I'm fine with that. I assumed they were going to keep Chris Hubbard, right? Like I thought that was going to be a given considering how they operated with the swing right tackle with Pryor last year. Even though I didn't like that setup, I assumed they were going to do something similar. So maybe they just felt comfortable enough to finally move away from that thought process. And I don't mind it. Obviously, the Trent Williams thing adds a different wrinkle to it because he's not here. So that means right now the 49ers starting left tackle is Jalen Moore. And then beyond Jalen Moore, what do you have? Does that mean Spencer Burford might be playing some right tackle? Does that mean Zakel could be playing tackle? You have to feel comfortable with one of those guys playing tackle if no Trent Williams is walking through that door. So it is interesting considering the fact there is no Trent Williams. Uh, very interesting. Um, who is going to start for Trent? It's definitely going to be Jalen Moore. What's up, Luke? Says, Brad, what's your thoughts on risking Nugent? He did great year one. Took Nick 3 years to get this good of results. Kingston had upside too. My guess is that they believe that both of those guys will swing back around to the practice squad. I think offensive line is just a really challenging position because you can only keep so many. You keep 5 starters and you keep 3 to 4 backups, typically 3. Some teams keep 4. It's just such a thin position that I think there are so many Drake Nugents and Jarrett Kingstons for other teams out there that they're just going to bring back the guys that they know. Because when you look at Drake Nugent, he's not huge, he's not big, he doesn't like pass that measurable test. So that might be enough to sway people away from him. Kingston, I think, again, he looks like a prototypical, or not prototypical, but he looks like a guard. I thought he showed well as a puller in pass protection. He did pretty solid. And again, granted, against a lot of backups. Um, but I would assume the thought process there is they think they can get him back on, they can get both those guys back on the practice squad. So I'm not overly concerned with those guys. I think again, you just bring them back to the practice squad and you keep developing them and allow them the opportunity to potentially earn a roster spot mid-season, or again, give them an opportunity to be in camp, and then also see what they do in year 2. So we'll see. We'll see. Well, Harbaugh knows Nugent, true, but why did Nugent sign with the 49ers and not the Chargers? So I think there's something to that too. It's Nugent chose us over Harbaugh's Chargers, so who knows? I don't know the entire depth of the Chargers lineup. Again, like I said, these offensive lines are so thin, and there aren't a lot of spots for guys like Kingston and Nugent that are developmental. So the developmental O linemen typically go on the practice squad. Is kind of how I'm looking at it. So I think with those guys, more developmental and have a chance to be better in the future. But I'm really curious what the status of Banks is, because if Banks isn't going, it looks like it's going to be Nick Zakel, who will be first in line to take over for the starters. So that will be a fascinating development as well for that situation. So still a lot of questions. Still a lot of questions um, with this team, obviously surrounding the two ongoing, never ending contract sagas that is just insane, that I can't believe we are here at final cut down day. Trent Williams isn't actively on the roster, and Brandon Ayuk is on the roster, just without a new contract. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What do you mean you don't like just Tonjes behind Kittle? Again, I think they're going to shift some things around. I hope they bring back Salbert. I can't believe they let Salbert go. He had such a good camp. I was really surprised by that. Really surprised. Ooh, have any bold takes on players that they may target because we know they're not done with? I wish I had a list. Did someone do any lists of like top players who like got cut? Um, I saw a couple names. Um, uh, Zonovan Knight, I kind of like. I would like to kick the tires on him on the practice squad. I already said I don't want Kadarius Tony. Ooh, I would I would kick the tires on Irv Smith. The former second round draft pick was released by the Chiefs. He hasn't really latched on anywhere. He's really struggled to really find a spot. But Irv Smith is a very physically gifted tight end. I would bring it. I'll think about it. I would think about Irv Smith as a practice squad guy. Um, Terrace Terrace Marshall, although I don't think he's all that good, I would take a chance potentially on bringing him onto into camp. I talked about as well Donovan Peoples Jones. I would love that. Caleb Fairley for the vibes. I was a huge Caleb Fairley guy. Oh my gosh, I did a lengthy draft breakdown on Caleb Fairley. I really thought he had huge potential, but unfortunately, just way too many injuries that just really messed with him. I can even pull up. I haven't seen this thing in a long time. This is my draft breakdown of Caleb Fairley. Oh, I love this guy. I love this guy so much. Thought he was a top 15 pick. He was my number one ranked cornerback in the class. Comped him to Kyle Fuller. Oh, I love that guy. Love that guy. But I don't think you could take a chance on him. Just too many injuries. I think you got to be on the lookout for defensive ends, defensive linemen, defensive tackles. You got to get someone. I know the Cowboys let go of Carl Lawson, but I just think he's washed. So I don't think that would be worth it. Um, yeah, not a lot of other names that I've seen that are popping out to me, but we'll see. Could be, could be. I would like it if that was the case. I think Juice could definitely be that guy. Did Trey Lance make the roster? I assume he did. I don't. He didn't have that bad of a preseason that they cut him, did he? I didn't see that. I think we would have. I think I would have seen if they cut Trey. Right? I probably would have seen that everywhere. Um, man, I just think about Trey Lance and his career, and just think back to that process of him coming out. He should have never entered the draft. He should have never entered the draft. He should have transferred to a Power Five school and should have gotten at least one more year with the Power Five school, even if it meant having to sit out all of 2020, played the 2021 season, and then considered entering the draft. His biggest mistake was getting that draft grade that he would be a top 5 draft pick and entering the draft after that weird one game 2020 season. Um, I just really think Trey needed more time. He needed more experience. He needed to go back. Even though yeah, I got him to be a top 3 draft pick. He needed to go back. He needed to play somewhere else. He needed to elevate to a bigger program, prove that he could translate his skills to a bigger program, to a bigger pool of talent, and then do it again. Then go back into the draft. Uh, with NIL, can college kids try the draft and go back to school if they don't get drafted? I don't think so. I think once you declare, you declare. I've never heard of someone declaring for the draft and then going back to school. I heard Broderick Jones is struggling with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Um, yeah, I've heard Broderick isn't having that great of a time with the Steelers. Steelers still waiting for that. Still waiting for that Brandon Ayuk notification to hit, and I just don't think it's coming. I don't know. I just feel like if the 49ers are trading Brandon Ayuk at this stage, they're trading him based on a little bit of desperation. That's kind of what that feels like. So, yeah. I just don't see it. I just don't see the end in sight either. That's the hard part. Is like we got nothing. We got nothing. We got nothing. So I don't know. But I am excited that we did get a little bit of a nice distraction from our daily Trent and BA stuff. And the fact that we were able to determine the final 53-man roster. Thoughts on Dotson? Dotson must really be a head case because I think he's a quality wide receiver, but he must have he must have some real character concerns for that situation to go down. So, and especially with the new regime, new coach, new general manager, he must be a real head. He must be a real headache for the Washington Commanders to get rid of him for nothing. And yeah. Nick Herbig, of course, would be appealing to trade for. I don't see the Steelers trading him. He is such a value to them based on, I think, was he like a mid round draft pick, and he's producing. It wouldn't make sense, in my opinion, for the Steelers to trade him. It would make sense for the 49ers to trade for him. It wouldn't make sense for the Steelers to trade him, in my opinion. Really, the Steelers' biggest problem is they don't have a quarterback. That's their problem. And it continues to be their problem. They do a pretty solid job of building their roster out everywhere else. They just don't have a quarterback. Like, why would they spend the investment on Brandon Ayuk if they don't have a quarterback to get him the ball? Like, what would the point be? What would the point be? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That's why I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. Overall, I would say the roster is looking like a solid B. That shifts to an A with the addition of Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams. But until then, we got a B roster, a B roster that can play like a B plus A minus roster. But when you got Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk, it goes to an A roster who can play like an A plus roster. So that's kind of where we're at. I think the roster that the 49ers still have is currently. Did he? Uh-oh. Did he post that on to Cowing number change, huh? I'm assuming he posted that to his IG. Is that it? I knew I'm glad he did change it though, because I didn't love the 83 on him. I'm gonna be honest. Where do you see that he changed his number? Oh, you're just worried it happens. Got it. Um, I definitely think he'll change his number. What numbers just came open? No way he takes 0, right? I don't think he would take 0. He could. I don't think he would. Um, I don't know. I don't know. 19? Mm, he can make 19 work. He should definitely wear 16. He should wear 16 or 8 or 80. Either one of those 3, I think, would be fire. Let's get Cowing in 8, 16, or 80. Maybe 87. And just watch him cook in you think Steve Young would be like, "You know what, Jacob Cowing? I see it in you, young man. I see the greatness. Let's dust off the old number 8 and let's let you." Honestly, Cowing I think would look solid in 8. I think I think 8 is an underrated wide receiver number. Um the whole point of all the numbers that I listed is every single one of them are retired. That's kind of the joke. Every number I listed was retired. Um, but I could see Cowing rock the crap out of number 8. Um, the only problem is Steve Young would have to to call to call someone, and I don't think he will. Um, let's see, Cowing. Who's number 3 right now? I could see Cowing in 3 because he used to be 2. I could see Cowing in 3, 4. Who's 9? Ooh, he could pick 9. Could you see Cowing rocking 9 because that was Braden Willis's number. Oh yeah, Moody's 4. I could see him rocking 9. I think 12 is a retired number. Um, Bell obviously has 10. Ayuk 11. Who's wearing 13? Someone's wearing 13. I'm gonna sound like an idiot after I say that out loud. Who's wearing 13? Is anyone wearing 13? Is anyone wearing 13? Who's wearing 13? Anyone wearing 13? I don't think I deserve to call myself a 49ers content creator after this. I got to hang it up. Oh my gosh. Anyone wear 13? Like literally I'm so embarrassed by myself. My face is red. That's how embarrassed I am. Like legitimately embarrassed. Who wears 13? Oh, I'm gonna sound like an idiot because someone important wears 13. It's been a long day. It's been a long. Please clip it. Please, please let the world know that I don't deserve to cover the 49ers. And who's 13? Someone wears 13, and I'm gonna sound like an idiot when it comes to my mind. I saw the first comment too. I think this was it. Brock. I was like, oh my God. I was like you can't even plan to sound like that much of an idiot. You really can't. You can't even like fake sounding like an idiot that much. Where's number 13 on the 49ers? Hmm. He says I was yelling it's Brock. Oh, good stuff. That's how you know I've been streaming for over an hour and a half and posting like a madman. Let's see how many videos I made today. I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 videos and beyond an hour and a half live. Yeah, I'm cooked. No, I was being serious because I'm just like looking, I'm just going down the list like 13. Who has 13? Sheesh. Someone kick me off. Someone kick me off the stream right now. Someone take over. I'm glad that you guys got enjoyment out of that, though. I'm glad you thought that was funny. Because that what a ridiculous statement to make. I only I only get on here and talk about Brock Purdy nearly every single day. Who wears 13? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Ponte could have a field day with that clip. Oh, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for my mentions to pop up and just see that clip there. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. I know one of you son of a guns are gonna put it out there. Be like, this is who you listen to. Oh God, good stuff. Good stuff. Right? I was just talking about how important Brock Purdy was. What number does that guy wear? If you're new to this channel, I totally understand if you don't subscribe. I get it. I understand. Makes sense. I get it. I get it. Well, I appreciate that, Luke. He says, as much as you do lives, you don't make many mistakes. I try. I try to be good, but apparently when it comes to remembering Brock Purdy's number, I'm not so good. Who wears 13? Oh, I don't know. Who wears 13? God, what an idiot. I think that's a good time, though. I think that's a good time to wrap the stream when you can't even remember who is wearing number 13. Just happens to be the guy that we talked about was probably the most important player that the 49ers have added under the Kyle Shanahan John regime. That's probably a good time to hang it up. So that's what we're going to do. I appreciate everyone tapping in to this stream. Grab your cookies on the way out, especially if you stayed for the whole time. This was a longer show. We're officially off the rails when I don't even know who wears number 13. And yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, this is what exactly. This is what I was thinking. He was 14. That's what it was. That's exactly what it was. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know everything we already know. But appreciate all you guys. Grab your cookies on the way out. I'm fried, but I'm out. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.